Well, Donald Trump made history today, and so today became a day that will live in infamy in presidential history, because today Donald Trump formally rejected the position that every American president has held since Franklin Delano Roosevelt masterminded the American victory in World War II. Leader of the free world. That is what Franklin Roosevelt turned the job of the presidency into during World War II. Every subsequent president until Donald Trump fulfilled that role, especially at the United Nations. The United Nations began in the imagination of President Roosevelt. While President Roosevelt was making the key strategic decisions leading to victory in World War II, he was also planning the aftermath of the war. He was planning the peace. That's the way he talked about it, planning the peace. During the war, he sometimes referred to America and its allies in the war as the United Nations. He didn't live to see his design of the United Nations come true. But when the United Nations was organized after World War II, it was basically the Franklin Roosevelt design. And every day at the United Nations throughout its history, the American president's ambassador to the United Nations always stood on the side of freedom. The United States of America in the United Nations voted with the free nations of the world against the cruelest dictatorships in the world, which almost always meant voting against the Soviet Union. In the 21st century, as Russian President Vladimir Putin began turning the Russian government into a dictatorship again, the United States leadership of the free world at the United Nations meant standing against Russian aggression. Since Russia invaded Ukraine exactly 3 years ago on this day, the United Nations passed 6 resolutions against the Russian attack on Ukraine. And the United States voted with the free world against the Russian war on Ukraine every single time until today. The United Nations once again today approved a resolution condemning Russia's war against Ukraine, and for the first time in history, the United States did not stand on the side of freedom in the United Nations. The United States, for the first time in history, voted with the dictator against the free world. Donald Trump voted with Vladimir Putin in the United Nations, and so it's official. It really is. As of today, if there's a leader of the free world, it is not the President of the United States. It might be the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, who played an important role in presidential history today, making Donald Trump the first president in history who had to be interrupted and corrected by an ally when the President of the United States was lying, and lying about that ally. General Charles de Gaulle, who became the president of France after World War II, may have been the most egotistical elected president anywhere in the world. Winston Churchill and Franklin Roosevelt couldn't stand de Gaulle during World War II. But they knew they had to deal with him, and they never had public disagreements with General Charles de Gaulle. Emmanuel Macron may be one of the least egotistical French presidents in history, but today it was the mild-mannered French president who had to interrupt the blustering president of the United States when the president of the United States was lying. And it fell to the French president to correct the American president in a way we have never seen an American president corrected before by another head of state or by anyone. Donald Trump did his standard lie about Europe's aid to Ukraine, the lie that Europe has loaned money to Ukraine, and it's a loan, and Ukraine has to pay it back. Donald Trump became the first American president in history fully humiliated on the world stage by instantly getting caught and corrected in his lie
Europe is loaning the money to Ukraine. They get their money back.
No, in fact, to be frank, we paid 60% of the total effort, and it was through, like the US, loans, guarantee, grants, and we provided real money. To be clear,
okay.
We have 230 billion frozen assets in Europe, Russian assets, but this is not as a collateral of a loan because this is not our belonging. So they are frozen. If at the end of the day, in the negotiation we will have with Russia, they're ready to give it to us, super. It will be loan at the end of the day, and Russia will have paid for that.
If you believe that, it's okay with me.
Mr. President.
But they get their money back, we don't, and now we do. But, you know, that's only fair.
He actually reached out, President of France reached out, grabbed the arm of the American president to stop him from telling a lie about France and the rest of the countries of Europe. So Donald Trump's response to being corrected on his lie was to simply tell the lie again. They get their money back. When President Macron finished speaking, Donald Trump just told the lie again. So on the day when Donald Trump officially sinks the presidency on the international stage lower than it has ever been, by not only surrendering leadership of the free world at the United Nations, but standing against the free world, then right there in the Oval Office, Donald Trump is humiliated and exposed in a way that no previous president ever could be, because no previous president would be pathological enough to try to tell a lie like that right in front of the person he's lying about. And no previous president could possibly be stupid enough to try to tell a lie like that. But, as our first guest tonight has written, quote, "The divide in politics today is between unreality and reality." Yale professor Timothy Snyder wrote that. Donald Trump constantly represents unreality. His followers constantly prove they share that same unreality with Donald Trump. They are unreachable by reality. They are unreachable by the reality presented today by the French president. Trump's followers will never see what the French president did to Donald Trump in the Oval Office today. And if they did see it, they wouldn't understand it. And Donald Trump knows that, which is why, after the French president catches him in a lie, Donald Trump just tells the lie again. President Macron tried to break through to Trump followers by appearing on Fox at the end of the day.
Today is clearly the anniversary of the beginning of the aggression war of Russia in Ukraine. They invaded Ukraine 3 years ago. We want peace. And I think the initiative of President Trump is a very positive one. But my message was to say, be careful, because we need something substantial for Ukraine, but for the security of Europe and France. And second, let's work together on the future to preserve security guarantees, meaning to be sure that this peace will be respected by Russia.
The now powerless Republican senior senator Mitch McConnell, who, when he was in the Senate leadership, enabled Donald Trump in every way that he possibly could, issued a statement today saying refusing to acknowledge Russia as the undeniable and unprovoked aggressor is more than an unseemly moral equivalency. It reflects a gross misunderstanding of the nature of negotiations and leverage. Blame for this human catastrophe rests solely on Vladimir Putin. Here's how we know. If Russian forces laid down their arms, Europe would be at peace. If Ukrainian forces laid down theirs, Putin's aims would not stop with Kyiv. Mistaking this fact is as embarrassing as it is costly. Without a clear and resolute commitment to the leadership and order that underpins our prosperity and security, America's adversaries will receive exactly what they hope for. There is no question. The entire world is watching. Speaking of embarrassing, in the joint press conference with President Macron, Donald Trump was asked about his threatened tariffs against Canada and Mexico.
The tariffs are going forward on time, on schedule. This is an abuse that took place for many, many years. And I'm not even blaming the other countries that did this. I blame our leadership for allowing it to happen. I mean, you know, who can blame them if they made these great deals with the United States, took advantage of the United States on manufacturing, on just about everything. Every aspect that you could imagine they took advantage of. I look at some of these agreements, I'd read them at night, and I'd say, who would ever sign a thing like this?
Yeah, that's a good question. Who would sign something so bad for America? I think the control room actually has a picture of who signed it. Let's see. Yeah, there he is. That's the guy who signed the current trade agreement with Canada and Mexico. He did it the first time he was president. And I think we've got him holding up. Yeah, there he is holding up his very proud signature. Look at how proud he is of that signature on what he called then the greatest trade deal in history.
For the first time in American history, we have replaced a disastrous trade deal that rewarded outsourcing with a truly fair and reciprocal trade deal that will keep jobs, wealth, and growth right here in America. And in a true sense, it's also a partnership with Mexico and Canada and ourselves against the world. It's really a trade partnership, if you look at it that way. And it's a day of great celebration in all three countries.
Great celebration in all three countries. The perfect trade deal. Canada, Mexico, and the United States, all three countries. And nothing changed between that day and today. The Biden administration did not change one word of the Donald Trump signed trade agreement with Canada and Mexico. So imagine an elderly president who says, who would ever sign anything like this? And then you produce the pictures of him signing it. Wouldn't the Washington press corps just scream about the cognitive decline of that president? Wouldn't the White House press corps ask screaming questions about the president's mental capacity? Two presidents shamed and embarrassed Donald Trump today. The first was the president of France. The second was the president of the United States. Today, Ukraine's president, Volodymyr Zelensky, said this: "This war has deep meaning. It is a fight for independence, the kind that many nations have gone through. Those who fight survive. Those who surrender are erased by history. And we, Ukrainians, exist. And we always will."